I'm Bailey Parnell, and this is Let's Think This Through. Join me for drinks as I bring on guests for conversations that inspire, amuse, and challenge us, but in a fun and relaxing kind of way. Ultimately, it's to help us all learn and live a better, easier life. So let's think this through. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Think This Through with me, Bailey Parnell. Today, we are having drinks with not just anyone, but someone I would consider to be maybe my fairy godmother. That's how I think about her. I met her with Hamza, years ago. It must have been before the pandemic. And ever since then, she has immediately become like family to both of us and certainly a mentor in many respects. I mean, I literally have all like her books, some of her books literally right beside me right now, as you can see. She is someone who, when you're in her presence, you immediately feel like the most important person, and she is going to lift you up. She is a public speaker who has been doing this for decades, and I'll never forget when I went to go visit her at her house in California, and she's in her 70s and her husband's in his 90s, and she's telling me she runs 5K every day, and I'm like, oh my God, you are goals. So I'm so excited for you to learn the wisdom of our dear friend and my fairy godmother, Eileen McDargh. I just want to interject here before you hear this episode and let y'all know that there might be a little bit of noise in the background, but what can I do? We live in a building and people want to redesign their homes. I don't even know. But we're talking about resilience in this episode, and so what do? We adapt. And you may occasionally hear something in the background, but that does not take away from the value that you're about to get. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here. Now, I know you very well, but how are you introducing yourself to the people these days when they say, tell them what you do?
Well, let's see. Have mouthful travel.
I imagine.
This is a good one. I am a professional speaker, a facilitator, a writer. I've had my own company now for a number of years, a long time. I am a Hall of Fame speaker. And actually, this makes me sound very old.
Mm-hmm.
In the last couple of years, I was proclaimed a legend of the speaking industry.
Well, this makes sense to me. I think you're a legend, and Hamza has said that you are among his favorite speakers consistently. So that to me is the ultimate compliment because he's very discerning.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that from both of you, and it's wonderful to be here with you.
Well, what are you drinking over there?
Well, let's see. I have a glass of Merlot.
Oh, lovely. And on tune, I also have a glass of red tonight, although I'm kind of in my Bordeaux era.
Actually, the truth of the matter is, I don't know, because when I realized that we were really going to do this, I ran out. There was a bottle that had opened up, and I took the cork off of it and I poured it. So all I know is it's red.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, cheers to that then. I mean,
Cheers.
of course, wine is a good accompaniment to somebody giving this interview from California. I certainly associate some of my best wines with California.
There are some very good ones. So I have to tell you, this one is Spanish. It's a Spanish.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I would think that you would drink beyond, but you're lucky over there. Now, when I was putting together, I was thinking about doing this with you and on thinking through some things with you. And I actually researched you in a way that I don't normally do with you because I just know you as a friend and I know you as a mentor. And it's like, I don't take all my friends and mentors and I don't go through their entire history before we become friends. And so, but for this, I had to go through. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about, I realized that it mapped on quite nicely to the order of your books. Because even though I have a bunch of your books here, right over here, there was books that I didn't even realize that you had written over the years. And so I found one that I was like, how do I not own this yet? It was Talk Ain't Cheap, this book. So because there's so many things I wanted to talk to you about, I was like, I'm just going to actually put this in the order that it came out in your career. It's almost like talking to someone who's like, okay, let's do this album, then this album, right? Mm-hmm. So when it came to Talk Ain't Cheap, you were exploring the power of communication and you had suggestions for effective communication. But I imagine that this has adapted in the era of social media and digital interactions, no?
Well, you know, this actually, my first book was called Work for a Living and Still Be Free to Live, and it's no longer in print.
Oh,
This
wow.
came, this came actually when we became so entranced with email, and
Wow.
we didn't talk to people.
Hmm.
And and that's why I said connecting in a disconnected world, because
Hmm.
I would go into organizations and somebody would say, "Well, so and so is my manager, but I've never seen them. They don't come down
Hmm.
and talk to me. They send me an."
Hmm.
I thought, you know what? We're missing the whole human piece, which is what you study. This is what you're about. Is how do we make social media work for us, not against us? And when you go the whole other side, you miss it. And this is the most basic thing we do in our lives. And when I read why are employees disengaged, why are they quietly retiring?
Hmm.
Nobody knows them. They don't pay. And it's not carried just through what you see on email. So that's how this book came up. And it's very small because we don't have a lot of time to read. And what I wanted when I write is very simple and it's very direct. So you get
Hmm.
it easily. And that's where this first book came from.
So when you wrote that book then, you were writing from the place of email, but when you describe it as something where I wasn't seeing my leader and I didn't know how to talk to them, that feels like it was written a year ago. That feels like it was written right now.
Yeah, it's timeless. That's where I said it's priceless. It's not cheap. I mean, let me just open up here. Use scripting for corrective conversations. How do I tell someone, what is a corrective conversation without blowing them out of the water? How do you describe, explain, express, and specify what you want? There's some real specific skills in here. Like you
Mhm.
practice storytelling instead of
Right. Right, and I can see how that would still be just as relevant even if it's over Zoom.
it really is. And so we also have this in a digital version. And when people sign up for my e-sign, we send them this in a digital format um, because it is simple to get in. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not profound.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think that, they say the I always think back to I think it was a Churchill quote who said, I apologize for the length of this letter. I didn't have time to be concise. Well,
That's
because in fact takes more time, sometimes more effort and more communication skill to get to the point quickly and
that's right.
concisely.
And by the way, it
Mhm.
was Mark Twain who said it.
Oh, was it? Okay, see?
Mark Twain.
There you go.
And the last, I didn't have time to write a short one.
Mhm. Right. Oh, yes, he's so good. So then what strategies, if they're different or the same, do you recommend for creating kind of more genuine connection in today's digital world, but it's almost like digitally connected but disconnected world? And yeah, what do you suggest these days?
Well, first off, I think it's what's the intention? And do you have the intention to create a relationship? If you have no intention to create a relationship, you're probably going to blow somebody off. You're going to tell them three things and disappear. And one of the things that in fact, I noticed this yesterday. I was on another Zoom call and there were like 31 people on them. One of the people, and you could still see her, she was putting stuff away on a shelf. Then she got out her phone and she was looking at it while the other person was talking. Immediately, if she was in real time, I would have slapped her. I said, "Stop that! You're not. You have no intention of being there." And I think what we want now more than anything, Bailey,
Mhm,
we want compassion, and connection, which you and I can do. We can do this. I'm not saying we can't do this over Zoom.
mhm,
We look at each other, and it's my intention for us to create a relationship. So I think what is your intention, and how do I understand you, and what's going on with
mhm,
you right now, and you want to know what's going on with me right now. So I think that, for example, when managers begin to hold meetings, don't just say, here's the six things we're going to discuss and we're out of here. You know,
mhm.
take 2 minutes each and say, what's the thing that's you're happiest about right now? What's bugging you right now? What's Because then I get to see parts of the human being instead of a blank piece of paper.
Yeah. And we would suggest something similar too in terms of like, for example, my one-on-ones with my team always have an agenda item at the beginning called personal check-ins. And it's relationship building with the intention, but it can also be strategic as well from a leadership perspective because when I know your personal lens, I feel like I will be better able to communicate to you. I'll be better able to, if I have to give you negative feedback straight after this, I'm going to do it in a little bit of a different way or push it towards tomorrow if I know that you're giving me a personal lens of something that's happening in your life that's really hard right now.
Spot on, spot on. And it's that desire to create that kind of relationship. Well, it's interesting. I was just with a group
Mhm.
in December down in the Baja, and one of the people that I was with, we were in a retreat center. He had been with Google for 12 years.
Mhm.
One day, he gets an email that says, "Your services are no longer needed. Goodbye." The computer froze, and he was out of there after 12 years. What do you think
Wow.
this person's relationship is with Google right now?
Oh my
And what
goodness.
does that say about an organization that treats a human being who gave you 12 years of their life and is just like, "You're gone"?
Mhm. And now I feel like that's becoming even easier for some organizations because now it's like, oh, we'll hop on a quick Zoom call. Sorry, this actually happened to my friend on Monday of last week. So it's so funny we're talking now. She logs into a typical Zoom call with her boss, has absolutely no idea that they have been planning restructuring all this time, and within 15 minutes no longer works there. Was not able and by the way, I know her and I know her work. So for people who are wondering, like, well, was she a bad employee? The answer is no. She's a very high performer. She's was very much aligned with it was a global nonprofit mission, and I was shocked to hear how it was done, given that this was a place that outwardly is promoting like human centricity and equity and all these things, right?
If you don't walk the talk, you ain't got it. And they did not walk the talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so funny what to see this firsthand what people would want, in a when they're being laid off or something like that. The package was, you could say good, like it came with a certain amount of pay and it actually came with, coaching and resume help and all this stuff, but what her and her colleagues wanted at the end of the day was they would have rejected the coaching if they could have been laid off with dignity, I suppose.
With respect and with someone who appreciates however many months, years, whatever she put into that to be dismissed that way. That's
Mhm.
kind of like a policeman coming up to my front door and handing me divorce papers, and I'm going, huh? That I didn't
Right.
didn't have it.
Right.
So
Well,
it's
some people even do spend more time at their company than with their partners.
well, actually, that's true. That's true. So what you and I are, I think, um, committed to
Mhm,
is how do we create organizations and a world
mhm.
that works for everybody, that
Right.
respects the dignity of the other person,
Mhm,
their abilities, and believes that everyone has a gift and a place. And how do we help them find it?
mhm. Yeah, and it can see that so clearly, and you've been at this a lot longer, which is why, yes, I am committed to the mission, but in a way, we're just kind of taking up the torch. And your torch led you from talking cheap, it's priceless, over to the world of resilience. And it was kind of, if you think about eras of people's life, like that, you went from like this communication to like this resilience era. And what you now have 3 books on resilience, and that's when we met you, and what made you decide to focus on this in the first place? Like, what inspired you to dedicate so much time to resilience?
I became intrigued with the notion of resilience when 9/11 hit the United States and watching my family, my colleagues, my nation, how it responded. And it led me on this path that said, you know what? Regardless of the severity of the situation, what is it in the human spirit that allows us to move through, in this case, challenge, but also through opportunity? And so my first book was called The Resilient Spirit, Heart Talk for Staying Right Side Up in a World That's
Mhm,
Upside Down. And I would love to tell you that I had millions of copies. I don't. The graphic designer who had all the discs, everything for it, she, I don't know whether she lost them, she crashed them, but I don't have it anymore. And the artist is beautiful little artwork on every page. She had such bad carpal tunnel. The drawings that are in that book are the last drawings she will ever do.
Wow.
So it literally is a limited edition. And I will get one too. That was the first one. And then as the more I studied it, the more I realized that at the core of being resilient is not what the dictionary says. It's not about bouncing back.
Hmm.
It is about growth. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about energy management. Do I have the mental, emotional, physical capacity to grow? And so we have to say, what is it that gives me energy? What depletes my energy?
Hmm.
And there are things that deplete my energy, like my self talk, my head, things that deplete my energy, like extraneous noise in the background that throws me off. And so, how do I get my energy back?
Hmm.
So, when I look at what is it mentally that gives me energy or what depletes me, my heart. This is a huge, we call it the little brain. Heart talks to the brain. You know that.
Hmm.
So there are some times in which my heart tells me things that my brain says, "Oh, that's really stupid. Don't do that." And my heart says, "You need to pay attention to this." What fills my heart back? And actually being able to talk to you, to be able to see harms, that fills my heart. So I get this little energy boost. So my head, my heart, what is it that I do? There
Hmm.
are things that I do that give me energy and things that deplete it. And so let's say that cleaning the house might deplete my energy, but when it's over, I get energy back. It could be that, in fact, that's one of my quests right now.
Hmm.
As I look at being a wisdom worker, modern elder, what is it that I want that will fill my heart in this Act 3 or Act 4 of my life? And
Hmm.
then, of course, there's the very practical thing, like what physically gives me energy, which is why, and Bailey, you know this, I run almost every day. I have to exercise.
Oh, I told them. Which is so wild to me. I can't do that.
Well, but you would, well, everyone's different. But for me, to be outside and the sun is coming up and I'm by the beach, I get to run, I get to come back, I can do a little bit of floor work. But before I do that, I will admit I have a cup
Yeah.
and then I'm
Don't
quiet.
go wild.
Quiet and I do a little bit of meditation, then I'm out. Because then I have my brain, my willpower or whatever is just kind of ready for whatever the day would bring to me. So we look at that. What are the things that'll give me energy? And last but not least is the why. Why am I here?
Hmm.
When I become disconnected from that, it's when actually I've quit organizations.
Mm,
It doesn't match my why.
right. So is this energy then? Is this the resiliency GPS?
Yes, let's dance. Yes,
Which I have over here. But I haven't got a chance to read this one yet. So what is the GPS?
it's your growth potential strategy. What
Okay.
is growth potential? There it is. What is your
Yeah.
growth potential strategy? And so, and by the way, Bailey, I write for me,
Yeah.
right? Because I need to understand and
Mm,
take it out of my head and put it on paper and go, oh yeah, this is really true. In fact, knowing that we were going to have our conversation, I picked up this book and it's been a while since I looked at it and went, wow, this is really good. I wonder who wrote this. You've done this too, looking at things that you have. So it really says, first off, that there's such a thing as presilience, and that's
hmm,
preemptive resilience. And
hmm,
preemptive resilience is how do I, just like a GPS, okay? A GPS also says, where are you right now and where do you want to
mhm,
go, right? So the first thing is, where are you right now and where do you want to go? Sometimes you only know as far as the block, that little bit. And then it asks recalculating questions. Recalculating, recalculating. And so it's a way of saying what's happening in my life. Here, where do I find myself now? Where do I want to go? What are the recalculating questions? And does that destination change? And indeed it will. And
mhm.
sometimes the best thing I can do is to get to the corner of the street. And that's as far as I can go for now.
I
Well,
love that recalculating part. I feel like I was gonna ask, how can people use this GPS in their everyday lives? But I even think you've given me a language there, which is things happen that make you have to recalculate. And if you just think about it that way, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get to your destination.
no, no. It's just like the little voice says, Siri or whoever's talking to us.
Mhm.
Recalculating, and there are times in which somebody tells you to go this way, and you've seen
Mhm.
it on your GPS. It
Mhm.
wants you to take this route over here. You go, no, there really is a shorter route over here. I'm going to take the shorter route over here, and you recalculate. This is what the quote GPS says, but you want to go someplace else. So I always this I actually must say, and they can get this off of Amazon. I love this little book because
Mhm.
there's so much that's in it, and it takes you on a course, and it looks at things like how do I take a situation and how do I reframe it so that
Mhm.
I give myself power versus not. And my sister actually gave me this one. When something happens, you go, oh, it's an AFCO. It's another friggin' growth opportunity. Change the word F any way you want, but I say it's an AFCO, another friggin' growth opportunity. And you know,
Yeah.
I sit down with people and they've learned it. That makes them laugh. Yes, it's an AFCO. It's another friggin' growth opportunity. And that's a way of recalculating.
Yeah. And you know what? You just never know why there's going to be a recalculation and who's going to help you with it. If I'm going on this metaphor, it's like you right now are going to become part of some of my recalculations and I don't even know how yet because you've given people the phrase AFGO. They're going to be, who knows, maybe that's going to help them recalculate something going on in their own life right now and you are the GPS for them in this moment.
It could be. It could be. But I think the first thing is to say, what does your situation look like? You know, how would you describe yourself right now? Happy, sad, in between. What are the short-term results you want? What's the long term? Maybe I don't know the long term. All I know right now is I need to get the food ready for the family that's coming tonight. That's fine. I can do that. I can do that. And sometimes I think we become overwhelmed thinking that I have to go from A to Z. Like
Mhm.
the truth of the matter is I might go to A.5.
Hey, yeah, let's get to B before you worry about Z.
It's true. It's really true. When I look at this, here's like one quote that I've always loved, and from Howard Zinn, the philosopher. He said, "To have hope, one doesn't need certainty, only possibility."
Hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
You often speak about the importance of energy, and you already have here in being resilient, and it's a focus of the Resiliency GPS book. What are some ways that people can maintain energy in challenging times? I feel like that's a question that a lot of people are dealing with right now.
Yeah. The first place that we start is with our physical body, and specifically exercise, nutrition, and sleep.
Yeah.
We're probably next to Japan, probably the most sleep deprived nation in the world. And over the last 3 years, Bailey, I have made an intention
Hmm.
to get 7.5 hours sleep. Which,
Hmm.
and by the way, to do that, you don't listen to your iPhone before you go to sleep. You don't look
Yeah.
at television. You either put on soothing music, you look at something that's funny, whatever, but something that allows you to transition from the craziness of the world into a place where you can sleep. And so that also means that you've got the right temperature, you've got but sleep it's very underrated.
Hmm.
It's essential for us.
Yeah, completely. It's like your prefrontal cortex, the thing that we need responsible for all this analytical thought, doesn't even function without base ingredients. And that's, how you treat your body, like
It
your
is.
sleep, your food, and to whatever degree you can completely.
So when somebody said, "How do I, recalculate how to get energy back?" I would first say, "What are you doing with your physical body?" And work on that first,
Hmm.
because you can see results from your physical body,
Hmm.
how you feel. Whereas
Hmm.
mentally, I don't necessarily see the results. So that's the first thing is to start with the physical. The second thing I think is we do not know what actually consumes our energy. And I'm going to call energy time. That's all that we have. We've got 24
Okay.
hours in the day.
Hmm.
What takes up those 24 hours? And what is taking it up that is zapping my energy? And so what I suggest, and I'm actually going to do this with the group next week, is
Mhm.
that if you can, from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, have
Mhm.
like a little notebook,
Mhm.
and you have two pages, and one says time, what, and who. Time, what time is it? What are you doing? And if there's a person involved. And you create, and this is not a monument in paper mache.
Mhm.
I'm saying something that's really fast. What is it? Well, it took me 30 minutes to get ready for, okay, so what? Getting ready for work, 30 minutes, da da. Now I'm a desayuno. I'm going to have my breakfast, whatever. What
Mhm.
happens, Bailey, when we begin to do this? And if you watch these patterns,
Mhm.
at the end of, I mean, it'd be great if we could do it for 7 days. Most of the time we can. But I would tell you in about 3 days, if you keep a time log and
Mhm.
you're pretty good about just writing what I'm doing, what time, what am I doing, and if there's a person involved, you spread those out on the kitchen counter. You look at it and you say, why am I doing that? Why am I doing that?
Oh, interesting.
Why am I doing it that way? And so
Mm.
what we're trying to figure out is, are there things that I can adapt, avoid,
Mhm.
or accept? And
Yeah.
some of those things I look at and go, why did I do that? I don't need to do that. What, and you know what? I could teach somebody else to do this, and it gives me back energy to do stuff that is more in my, it's more in my wheelhouse than somebody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, for
So
some reason, this just popped into my mind because, at first I think a lot about the context of work, but then I was thinking, like, oh, what about someone, like, maybe like my family, they get home from work and they're like, oh, I have no time after work. And one of the things that stood out in your list is one question is like, okay, why am I doing that thing if I don't want to be doing it? But then also, why am I doing it? So, like in couples, for example, sometimes people are like, oh, it has to be really even and equal in our relationship. And like, if I did the dishwasher once, you have to do the dishwasher, or roommates or something. But I was thinking about that just yesterday, and it will connect eventually, I promise. But I was thinking, like, with Hamza and I, it doesn't work like that. Like, it is equitable, but it is not equal. There are some chores that I have never done. There are some chores that he has never done. It all equals out in the same, but if I were doing a time keep in the end, I might be saying, like, if I really don't mind dishes in the dishwasher, but he is really vibing with vacuuming, like, I don't think I've ever vacuumed here because like, he just, like, loves he just, like, puts
that's
his headphones on, he finds it meditative, and I'm just like, "Perfect. Sounds great." If that's gonna give you energy and it's going to deplete mine, then, like, take it and go for it, and I will take the stuff, like, I don't know, washing the sheets that just or, like, washing towels, I don't know, I'll do that stuff because I don't care. It doesn't take anything from me.
that's funny. You know what my Bill
Mhm.
loves is he does the cooking. He's all
Yeah, right.
We're having all the families come in tomorrow for it's
Nice.
the time we can get together. He's making the cheese grits, the traditional green bean casserole
Oh
with
my
the
gosh,
French
yeah.
fried onions over the top.
And by the way, Bill's cooking be good,
Yeah,
everybody.
I'll set the table. I'll set the table. It'll look beautiful. I'll put out the right glasses and stuff. But he just grooves on that.
Mhm.
Oh, bless his little heart.
Yeah, so exactly though. It'll give him energy. If it's gonna deplete it from someone else, I guess you just got me thinking about like energy can be taken, can be depleted, can be built even in your personal life, even in 3 hours after work in different ways, you know?
Well, it has to be. Let's face it, the human system is nothing but energy.
Mhm.
I mean, if you looked at um, Einstein or that we're just a mass of energy,
Mhm.
and if we went poof, it would be energy. So it's our ability to understand what gives us energy, what depletes our energy. Sometimes stuff happens and you say, you know what, this is not what I would normally choose, but this is what I want to do. For example, um, when I moved my mom
Mhm.
from Fort Lauderdale out here to California to live with me,
Mhm.
and we had a series of setbacks, and then she's in assisted living and then memory care and skilled nursing, and I was with her pretty much every day.
Mhm.
So my energy was not devoted to running. It wasn't devoted to work that does feed my heart, but to be with mom at that point in time, the
Mhm.
context, it could be exhausting, but I didn't want to be anyplace else.
Right. There's places that we want. It is expenditure of energy, but we want to spend it that way.
Exactly. And
Right.
where is it that at the end of our life we say, I have no regrets.
Hmm.
And I have no regrets about my mom. I just wish that I had brought her out sooner, but
Hmm.
that's neither here nor there. But I think, life it's not planned. It's not like a chessboard that 27 chess moves and you win. The board changes because the
Hmm.
context of our life changes.
Hmm.
And when the context changes, then we step back and say, recalculating,
Recalculating. Yep.
calculating.
What's my destination? How am I getting there?
Yeah. And remember the destination does not have to be the other side of the earth. It might just be two houses
Hmm. She's might be in the same house, just mentally different destination, right?
down. The guy that's hammering on the wall is
Yeah. Well, one of among the many lessons that you've learned and given us takes us to the next era of your career, which was gifts from the mountain.
yeah.
And yeah, gifts from the mountain. So tell everybody actually where this book came from and the journey that inspired it.
So this book, which won a Ben Franklin Award, is the outstanding
Hmm.
book for the year that it was in. It says simple truths for life's complexities, and where this started. Remember, I said I write for me.
Hmm.
Bill and I are backpackers. At least we used to be. And this was the first backpacking trek that we went on without our daughter, who's very strong. She's taller than I am. It was just Bill and I. Well, we lost the trail. He lost the trail. So if you so so
Yeah.
if we got your trail over here, Bill would say, "Oh, I can't believe someone didn't go over there." It was horrible. Bailey, we
Oh.
were going across snowfields. We were climbing up boulders. And this is number one, it was extremely hard. Number two, it was very scary.
Mhm. There's no way out, too. You literally just have to go through. Like,
Yeah, that's true. You don't know where we are. He didn't know where we were. And I had a little tiny notebook. And I thought, okay, why am I doing this? There have to be some lessons for me.
mhm,
And every time I would see something, I would write it down. I thought, I have to figure out why I'm doing this. Otherwise, I'm
mhm.
going to kill him.
Yeah,
So everything that
fair.
I saw. And then when I came back, and obviously we made it successfully, there were a couple scary things. Um, and I thought there's wisdom here. See, I really believe that our greatest teachers are metaphors that tell us stories that we need to pay attention to. And so what this book became then were all of these lessons that I wrote in my little book. And I'd look at it and say, oh,
Mhm,
what's the lesson here?
mhm,
And so that's where it came from. And then what I also did was I wrote, see, when is a book more than a book? When it's
mhm.
a conversation fire starter.
Fun.
Talk about. So what I did is I created it's on my website. People can download it with the book. There's one for managers,
Mhm.
managers or leaders. There are ones for community members, and there's one for coaches.
Oh,
And what
interesting.
it does is it takes each one of these lessons, and even though they look very simple, here it is. It's very simple. Looks very
Oh,
simple.
we're gonna go through some in a minute, don't you
Oh,
worry.
okay. Asks reflective questions. So imagine if you have, you got 6 people around you.
Mhm,
You open up the book and say, John, tomorrow, next week when we come together, pick one of these that calls you.
mhm.
Come up with the questions related to what we're doing now. And
Yeah.
they can have the conversation fire starter guide to help them. And what it does, Bailey,
Mhm.
back to talking in sheep, it allows us to speak at a different level.
I completely get that, for sure. Well, we're gonna do it right now, actually, and
Okay.
because every guest gets a different segment. And for you, I had to choose Lost in Thought, especially inspired by Gifts from the Mountain, where this segment is kind of a moment of reflection where guests will share personal stories or experiences, go deep into it, and it's often story driven. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect for Gifts from the Mountain. So what I'm gonna do is it's completely random, everybody.
Okay.
I'm going to randomly pick a page and then you'll have to share the story that was once there. Okay?
Right? I'm ready.
Okay. The first one is I'm closing my eyes. The first one is, if you can see this, if the sky falls, there's another one behind it. At 11,000 feet, Morrill Lakes is hit with a 2-hour hail and lightning storm, the likes of which I have never seen. Tell us about this story.
Bill had, we're above 10,000 feet.
Mhm.
He has decided he's going to fish around a lake. I have what's called a tube tent over me, which is not a real tent. It's just like a piece of plastic with a rope thrown into it. And this massive storm comes up.
Mhm.
And it's really terrifying. I mean, you're up that high. The lightning is all around you. The hail starts. And please, Bill, come back. Please, because I don't know where we are now. Please come back. And after the storm passed, this
Mhm.
amazing moon came out.
Mhm.
And it struck me that when the sky looks like it falls, there's another something behind it.
Hmm.
And it was just a big, okay,
Mhm.
there's
And
more here. There's more.
and how would you typically connect this one for like a community member in their fire starter? What would you ask them to think
Ah,
about?
well, what I would say, actually, I'm going to go. Let
It
me,
is page 55 if you're wondering.
what I wanted to do, look to see, let me see, because I have my little fire starters here. So I wanted to see which one little, oh God, there's so many lessons in here. So here it is. So when the sky falls, another one behind it. Here were the questions which you could use anywhere. Where are we discouraged right now?
Mm,
The sky's falling. Where are we discouraged? What have we learned from coming through the last tough time?
mhm,
There were lessons that were there. What are some of the clues that tell us this too shall pass? What are other thoughts you
I love it. Okay, everyone, listen up. We're about to do another lesson. I'm
have?
closing my eyes.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of closing my eyes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have landed on Alpine. I'll show the picture because it's beautiful if you're watching right now. Alpine flowers bloom where you least expect them.
Uh,
Above the tree line, bitter Arctic winds scour granite escarpments. The uppermost reaches of the Sierra lie buried 4 months under ice and snow. Tell us the rest of that story.
well, it's exactly what it says. In the Sierras, in the high Sierras, you can have all manner of weather once you get above a certain altitude. And we have climbed Mount Whitney in the
Mhm.
Sierras, and then Bill and I also went to India and joined a collie up to about 16,000 feet.
Holy.
This is not about this one. So what is astounding is that when you think it's just so bleak and it's so cold and nothing could live here, all of a sudden there were these little teeny weeny flowers, and they survive because they're not big. The big ones are all gone. It's by being small that they are able to withstand the winds, the snow, everything that comes. And for me, part of my lesson is we see people who are very successful.
Mhm,
They stand up very tall.
mhm,
When they fall, it's a huge crash.
mhm,
Sometimes being small allows you to withstand and grow through what's going on around
mhm. I love that. What would be some of the questions that people should consider?
you. Well, let's see. I'm cheating because I'm gonna look in my in my little book. Let's see. We said that was about the Alpine.
That is page 18, if you're wondering.
I'm trying to look at what I respect the territory. Da-da-da-da, bound dates. Okay. I spent a lot of time creating this conversation before I started that because I thought, what would that? Where are my little questions? Well, we won't worry about it. I'll make them up as I come. So the questions are, actually I did find it. Alpine flowers bloom where you least expect them.
Mhm.
What was the good news you discovered in what looked like bad news?
Hmm.
That's the alpine flower. Is there something we can do to put a positive brushstroke on what seems negative? Can we help you find the positive?
Mhm. Okay, everybody, play that back.
There you go. Where have you been surprised by goodness when you least expected it?
These are so important, y'all. Like Eileen is dropping gems right now. These are the things that you could pay thousands of dollars in of money for therapy, or you can answer these fire starter questions.
I
Like seriously. Like,
We're doing this together.
okay, I absolutely love it. And now we're entering the era that you are in now. And I'm just loving the structure of this episode because it's just so naturally flows, all the things I want to talk to you about.
This happens when you're entering the era that I'm in now, which my nose is running.
that that is perfectly okay. We are here for the whole human experience. The era the era that you are in today, well, actually, I'm obsessed with this one because you gave me and Hamza the language of modern elders and wisdom workers. So, can you explain what is a modern elder? What is this concept? And why does it consume so much of your thinking right now?
Okay. Well, first off, I would like to say that I did not coin the term modern elder. It was actually coined by Chip Conley, who one of his mini books is called Wisdom at Work.
Mhm.
And a number of years ago, I read it when I was on retreat. And basically, what his discovery was that he was asked, he sold his company, and he was asked by two young guys, you're in the hospitality field, and we have this concept, and would you come and just, tell us what you know about this?
Mhm.
Well, Harry, just tell us what you know. Give us your thoughts. Well, the concept was Airbnb,
Oh, wow.
small, isn't it? And in this book, Chip talked about the fact, and I love this term, he realized that he was a mentor. A mentor is a mentor. And
Mm. Oh, a mentern, right,
so
okay.
he could be a mentor to these two young guys, but also they had some things that they could teach him.
Mhm.
And as this has gone on, I've been reflecting on what does it mean to be a modern elder? It's not getting old.
Mm.
People dismiss people because you're 65 and you have to retire. Well, you just lost a lot of wisdom that went out the door.
Mhm.
The modern elder says, what is it that I know that I can help pass along?
Right.
What is the wisdom? That's why I call us wisdom workers.
Mhm.
Um, I can remember, this was years ago, Bailey. I was brought into a steel plant.
Mhm.
I think it was in Gary, Indiana, in fact. Um, and I was going through the different parts of the steel plants, and I went up these steps, and I think I might have had on a hard hat or something. And here's this guy with all these equipment and steam, and you could see that the steel was rolling off of a plate. And he looked at me and he said, I said, yeah, been here about 25 years. I know some things that we ought to be doing different here, but over there, and he pointed to what was the building where the executives. He said, "Nope, nobody ever comes over here. They'll never
Hmm.
ask me what I know.
Hmm.
And when I retire, I ain't telling them."
Oh, wow. Wow. That's kinda sad.
I, and how many times do we think this happens? Not just in a steel plant,
Yeah.
because as he's approaching, to think you're retired, you're going to go play golf. You got more there, and because the executives in the building didn't bother to tap into his wisdom, they're going to lose
Mhm.
when he leaves. Well, now let's fast forward. I
Mhm.
want to be proactive. I want to say for me, what is this next phase of my life? What is it that I know that I can bring to my universe, to my family, to my nation that will help us in the next generation?
Mhm.
So my intention is to figure out where do I belong now.
Mhm.
So it might not be on a stage. It
Mhm.
might be the guide on the side.
Mhm.
It
Eileen, do you want to, how comfortable are you telling everybody your age? You do not have to.
Like, do you know how old I
I think so, but I don't know if you want me to say.
am? Well, I'm curious. How old am I?
I thought you were 79?
Oh no. No, not that old. Seven,
Okay,
I'm 75.
75.
You're thinking of Bill, who's extraordinary, who's 92.
I am, yeah. I was mixing up the 9. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 75. But you know, it's interesting
And
that
by the way, it's just wild to me that you run I mean, someone my age that runs
65.
5K 5K a day is
So,
that's
you
insane.
know, though, it's interesting. Um, with this group I was with in the Baja, I was the oldest one in that group.
Mhm,
But I have to tell you, as I looked around and listened and watched, I was stronger, healthier,
mhm, mhm,
and had more energy than many of those people in that group. So it was not related to age.
right.
It's related to mindset. It's related to health set.
Mhm.
It's
Well,
not,
you inspired me too. When we first met, I came back and I said to Hamza, it actually reframed my almost like what is a possibility for my future.
mhm.
Because, my when I met you was shortly after my mom passed, and she passed at 54. And I would be more than halfway through my life by the time, or like I would be currently more than halfway through my life if I passed then. And so, because, for many reasons, there's a lot of poverty in my family history, a lot of kind of upstream factors that relate to health. I've not seen a lot of, I don't even know if I've seen one graceful exit, however you want to call it. And not the, but even like, aging in general, I don't think I didn't really have grandparents active in my life. So when I met you and Bill for the first time, I literally came back to Hamza and I was like, there's another way to do this thing called life. Like there's like we got to be health, wealth and time. Like this is what we're trying to get to in the long run, right?
Sure.
And I just like love the way that you frame it because in my opinion I've only ever seen you get more valuable. I've only ever seen you gain more wisdom. Like you actually it's like wine. Like it literally gets better when you're dealing with helping people and focusing on things like resilience that change over time and learning and teaching. It's very inspiring.
I am so glad. And you know the other critical part, Bailey? Love.
You said it.
I'll say that letter for Hamza. Love. Seriously, I think love, whether it's two-legged or four-legged, something that you want to be near, to hold, to share dreams with.
Mhm.
It's we'll be married 44 years, May 18th.
Yeah. Are you still doing your month anniversaries?
We do. We
Yeah.
actually did. We did. Bill went out and got us lobster tails
Oh.
on March 18th. I can't wait to see what he's doing for April. And I laugh though because May 18th, 1980 was the day that
Mhm.
Mount St. Helens erupted.
Oh wow.
The day. And I laugh. I keep saying, we didn't do it. We didn't do it. But we decided for 40, almost 44 years, we have
Mhm.
celebrated our monthly. Now, initially, it was, you'd go out to dinner or you'd have a nice bottle of wine or something. Now, with age, it's a competition. Who can, number one, realize that it's the 18th of the month? And number two, who says it first?
Yeah. Cute.
Sounds crazy, but we laugh. when I was traveling a lot, I would often have a time zone, jump on him
Mhm.
because I could say, happy anniversary while he's still asleep. Now sometimes, one of us will wake the other up going, ha ha ha, happy birthday, happy anniversary. Gotcha, gotcha. And then we go, oh, you silly. And then, but what's interesting, by making that commitment once a month
Mhm.
to say happy anniversary, we're basically saying you can stay for 1 month more.
Mhm. Aw.
You,
Aw.
it's that's why when we were your listeners, your viewers won't know. I mean, we were back there at your wedding, and when I gave you that little book, I mean, that sounded really silly, but I have to tell you that commitment to celebrate whatever's that one day in whatever way you choose to do it is a recommitment of why you chose each other.
Mhm. And that love, I do believe love is a choice and it's an action word. And
Yeah.
you can see it in the way that you all treat each other and also just like gusto for life, right? Like, when I was there having dinner, Bill's cooking, there's out and about, like there's just no other people's beliefs or attachments about what it means to be 75 or what it means to be 96 is like their issues. Like you're going to define it for yourself, and that's the best.
It is. The other thing I think that's really helped for longevity
Hmm?
is laughter.
Mm. Yeah, and then you can tell you have an ethic of play. Even just turning the monthawary or month anniversary into like a game is like gonna
Dude, we laugh,
endure.
we laugh, we laugh a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I look at many couples who don't have no joy. They don't laugh together.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And there's some silly things you laugh at. It's just even if it's just a little chuckle. But laughter is, Victor Borge said it, it's the shortest distance between two people.
Oh, I love that. And when it comes to kind of opinions of aging or whatnot, how would you say the concept of modern elders challenges myths around ageism? And like, what are some of these misconceptions that you encounter?
Well, I think first off, we use the word aged as though it's a past tense, it's done. And we
Mm.
see ageism as that means that you're gone out to pasture. Bye bye, so long.
Oh,
You know.
Jesus.
So, and actually, we're seeing it somewhat in the current political climate in which they're saying Biden's too old. So,
Mm.
what does that mean? Yeah, you might miss some words, but he's got more going on in his brain. He's got more people around him, and people will look at see there was one word he missed. Well, yeah, just doesn't mean he's not competent and capable.
Hmm.
So we have a stereotype that with age comes an inability to do what you should do. You might do it differently. You
Mhm.
might bring other people around to support some of what used to be a strength that you don't have, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean you're incompetent.
Right.
There are some things that I don't choose to do anymore. Somebody else can do it. I don't choose to do this. Um, but that doesn't make me incompetent.
Mhm.
I might be competent in a different way.
Mhm.
So I think it is this notion that with age comes befuddlement, frailty, inability to do what you normally would do, and that's sure true. Some of that stuff is true. I am not going to go now climb 16,000 feet. I
Mhm.
don't. But so those are some of the myths. And what
Mhm.
I love about the work that Chip Conley is doing, his newest book is Learning to Love Midlife.
Mm.
It's
And that
amazing.
you were doing. Don't discount yourself. You're doing this work too.
Well, that's true. I am.
Mhm.
It
You
just
are, man.
it just started before I did, and it was Bailey. It was to be down at the Baja at this retreat, and to realize as I looked around, I'm the oldest person here.
Mhm.
It was really, really, um, and I wish I had. I wish when I was in my mid 50s that
Mhm.
this had been around because I think I would have gone farther along this journey. But
Interesting.
and all of those people there were magnificent,
Mhm.
magnificent in their own special way. with contributions. And that's another thing, Bailey. I think you
Mhm.
do this, you and Hans do this with your work. I hope I do it. Is we want to help people become clear on what is the contribution that they bring to the world.
Mhm.
And when they realize what that contribution is, it just, we're not going to create world peace and we're not going to solve the
Mhm.
great mystery of the universe and how come Jupiter has 7 moons. And,
Mhm.
oh, um, but there are contributions because nobody is here by accident.
Mhm.
Nobody.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that communities, companies, they can all be accessing this wisdom and these gifts that don't just disappear the minute you turn 65. And that's if people want to keep giving them, but they could be used in such a better way. And so you've mentioned him a couple times, but Hamza's actually getting a guest appearance question. I let him I let him contribute the thought experiment for this episode.
Okay.
And he's like, "Oh, you're talking to Eileen? Okay, well, ask her this for me." And I was like, "Honestly, I like it. So fine." Okay. So, in our thought experiment part of the episode, this is where we can dive into a hypothetical situation related to the topics. And it's really allows for like exploration of ideas not bound by the constraints of reality. So, we can kind of go in any direction, problem solving, go wherever we want. And so,
Oh.
this one is called the new CEO, a chief elder officer. Probably just an elder. And we know that this concept exists in other communities, indigenous communities and whatnot. But he is creating a company with the intention of placing um, more emphasis and really activating wisdom workers in an intentional way, or as we might call them, modern elders. And again, like we said, we've seen this elsewhere, but let's pretend there is a new position called the chief elder officer.
Can I apply?
I think so. Yeah, it was a thought experiment. Anything's possible here.
I'm on.
What would be their role? Um, so I mean, we can choose any company, but what would be their role? What areas of the business do you think that they would be most helpful with? And even like what should they be paid? What is this role, chief elder officer? What comes to mind?
Love this. They'll pay a lot of money.
Okay. Yeah.
That's up to that's negotiable. If you pay too much, then they'll lose. Yeah, forget about the pay for right now. Though pay does say, "I value what you bring to the table." Okay, to
Mhm.
say we want you to do this for free.
Well,
That
that's
doesn't
right.
help.
That is right. I
Yeah.
mean, to say, "Hey, can you volunteer with us just because you turned 65 doesn't seem right either."
No, no. So here's what I would consider.
Mhm.
Of all of the things that you've done, let's pretend that we're going to hire you as the CEO, the chief elder officer. So
Sweet.
one of the things that I would want to know is of all the things you've done in your life, what is it that you have done that has brought you the most joy?
Okay.
So if I say that, then we begin to explore what about that
Mm,
brought you joy? And of what you did, is it transferable
right.
to any part of our organization?
Okay, this is so interesting already because you're thinking if we honor elders like many other cultures have done before us, we shift it from what were you best at to what brought you joy? Like how can we connect the meaning of what you've given us to what we're doing now? Is that fair?
Yes, yes. And I truly do believe that when people are connected with what brings them joy, it brings them energy. And so we want to step back and say, what are the things that you're doing that
Mhm,
absolutely deplete you? Because we have to go back and say, why am I doing this? This doesn't
mhm,
make any sense. There's so much that organizations do that are frankly is stupid. Why
mhm,
are you doing this? It's because the way we've always done it. You know that. You've
mhm,
encountered that. I mean, it's amazing. Why am I back back before all the telecoms broke up?
mhm.
AT&T, I think it was AT&T, had a guy who was spending, I think, 3 full days a month writing some exhaustive report that was disseminated throughout the organization. And then somebody asked a very interesting question. Who reads this? But that guy gave up 3 productive days for a report
Mhm.
that no one read.
Right.
I remember talking to someone it was in the contracting office for the government,
Mhm.
and he said, this happens all the time. He created a report and he put 2 pages of a recipe book within the report.
Wow.
No one ever mentioned, oh, that was,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
they never even opened it. How how stupid is that?
Why are we wasting people's time
Why are we wasting people's time?
and energy and life?
That's right. Energy present when it can be used for other things. So I think that the question to ask of a potential CEO, chief energy officer, is that
Chief energy officer, chief elder officer
I love it.
needs to be a
I
chief
love it.
energy
I
officer.
mean, I said, because I call myself chief energy officer. I did say that wrong, didn't I? That's the title I give
No, I
myself,
think it's a
chief energy
Freudian
officer.
slip because you've already suggested that energy is required for resilience and that it's going to be part of this too, right?
Yes, it is. So he had the chief elder officer. I'm the chief, and you see it on my signature block. It's the chief energy officer. That's my job.
Mhm.
But the elder officer, I think, to ask that person, what is it that you know that the rest of us don't know? That's the other thing. Not only what brings you
Mhm.
joy, what do you know that the rest of us don't know, or that we would value that input?
Mhm.
And
And
they have to want to do this too. I mean,
yeah.
there's some people that all they want to do is go out and play golf. Fine.
Yeah, like in my opinion, the chief elder officer is not for someone who is like if you've really been wanting to retire and you've been looking forward to this and like you absolutely deserve that, you do not need to be working longer just because some people want to. But the fact that some people want to, they should have the choice to.
Well, I think so. And then you offer to, because there is it's like I mean, this was years ago in that steel plant.
Mhm.
That guy had wisdom. It was
Mhm.
wisdom, and it was some practical knowledge
Right.
because no one asked him. He said, "I'm taking it with me." What
Yeah.
a shame!
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what what an ever loving shame! And actually, when I brought that up to the management team, they were not happy with me.
Why?
No, I said, "You guys haven't asked." Well,
Oh,
just
well, there's your problem.
well,
You don't want to hear the feedback, clearly.
sometimes Bailey, we're brought in to say things that nobody else wants to say.
You know, I do relate to that. I do. Sometimes I know you get it too where it's like you'll be working with HR or something and they'll be like, "This is why we're telling people you're coming in, but this is why you're actually coming in," and they need to hear it from somebody else.
It's true.
Yeah.
It
It
says
is true.
a prophet in his own country is scorned, but you bring in
Yeah.
a prophet from another country, you go, oh, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So then how could I imagine that this chief elder officer could also be involved in really like important parts of the business. Like I imagine for some reason comes to mind is like onboarding and recruiting and being like, let me help you get aboard this ship. Like let's make beyond just how do you book vacation time? Like how do you let me show you around, let me integrate you, and then you can also teach me in return.
I love it. I mean, you're on something right there. If I've been, and not, nowadays, I think people don't stay with organizations longevity. I think it's getting shorter and shorter. Uh,
Yeah.
but when we go, you
Mhm.
take a certain piece of knowledge with you. Now, is everyone suited for this? No. Some people actually need to go. Please go. Please go. We do not want you here. Uh,
Mhm.
but I think if you broach that subject,
Mhm.
then they're not ready. I don't want to go play around the golf, and I do not know how to play pickleball. Maybe one day I'll play pickleball.
Yeah, apparently pickleball's a thing now. I don't even know.
Yeah, yeah. But for me, and I can
Mhm,
only speak for me, when I go back, what gives you joy?
mhm,
What is your why for being here?
mhm,
My why is contribution. It has always been contribution. If
mhm,
I don't feel I'm making a contribution, I don't want to do this.
mhm,
So for me, as a chief elder officer or a modern elder, whatever you want to call me, at the end of the day,
yeah.
did I make a difference? What was my contribution? Which is why I'm so grateful for you doing this, Bailey, because it just feeds my heart.
Well, it feeds my heart and my mind too. So I feel like I'm being a little selfish, and everybody listening too is you've poured into so many people. And as we come to the close of this episode, I always end with a segment called Train of Thought, where we engage in a bit of a live thought experiment of a version where we connect the theme of the last episode to the theme of this episode.
Okay.
And so, first things first is what would you say is one of the major themes of our chat today?
Oh gosh, this is going to sound crazy,
Hmm.
but I think one of the major themes of our chat is exploring new boundaries.
Hmm.
Every,
Recalculating.
we're exploring new boundaries, whether it's about resilience, whether
Mhm.
it's about gifts from the mountain. We're exploring things that were bounded for us, and how can we get beyond them in
Mm.
different ways in which we interact, we think about. So I would think that that's our theme, is exploring new boundaries.
Exploring new boundaries for ourselves. Now, I'm going to give you the theme of the last episode, which is a different, completely different topic, but our job is to connect this in ways that don't make sense yet. So, the theme of the last episode, she summed it up as we are women trying to build a better world with AI. We are women trying to build a better world with artificial intelligence. How does that connect in your mind to discovering new boundaries for ourselves?
That's exactly what it is.
I can draw some connections too, but how does it connect for you?
Well, let me put it this way. I'm not comfortable yet with
Mhm, mhm,
AI. And it is a new thing for me to learn.
mhm,
Remember I said resilience is all about learning new things. Um, I do have a special, it's called uh, EVY which is a way to use artificial intelligence in LinkedIn and
mm,
responding to people and
mhm.
questions. And I have not been very diligent about using that. So I think exploring new boundaries is for me, to understand more about what AI can bring. At the
Mm,
same
there
time,
it is.
as an author, I believe there's things that are in my head that, and we've seen this, where
Mhm.
AI pulls stuff out, but they
It's
don't
true.
give a credit for who's done it. They go, wait a minute, that was mine. You,
That is true. There's IP thing too.
yeah, your intellectual property. So there's a little bit of a caution there.
Mm. But to your point, I mean, if that's not pushing boundaries, I don't know what is, right? Having to address this from every side. But Eileen, you have really given everybody a lot in you still have I was gonna say tonight, but also in your career, also in your life. Is there any last pieces of advice you want to give listeners?
Let's see, advice. Well, I'm going to go back to the words of Howard Zinn, particularly with where we are globally, nationally. To have hope, one does not need certainty, only possibility. So for me, it is looking at what is possible that I have any kind of influence over that would help me make a contribution to make the world a better place.
Eileen, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome.